1.6 trillion euros. That's how much criminals are thought to have made in just 1 year worldwide. It's roughly the same as the GDP of France, Europe's second largest economy. Organised crime is one of the major scourges of Europe, and while much of the continent is getting poorer, crime profits are soaring. Only a fraction is ever retrieved. Arguably one of the world's most profitable crime syndicates is Italy's mafia. This report from Michel Santos.
Italian authorities have recently dealt severe blows on local mafia. They've made thousands of arrests and seized many thousands of goods. Italian crime-fighting methods have become a benchmark, as the country's mafia is considered among the most dangerous and best organised in the world. According to the Bank of Italy, the estimated crime revenue in the country in 2011 was 150 billion euros. Only 0.5% of that value was recovered. We came to Palermo, Sicily, to see some of the assets confiscated from the Cosa Nostra. Marco Letizzi, an officer with the Italian Financial Crime Squad, showed us a villa which was confiscated from the Sansoni brothers, who had connections with Toto Riina, one of the Sicilian big bosses. It is worth an estimated 3 million euros. Money launderers consider any number of fronts for their activities, even hotels. Concealing the source of illegally obtained revenues has several consequences. It diminishes healthy business investments, distorts markets, and increases corruption as organised crime becomes more integrated. But these activities are not restricted to Italy. Francisco Messinio, the chief prosecutor of Palermo, explained the huge reach of the mafia.
We know, for example, that the mafia and the 'ndrangheta are massively present in Germany, and this is becoming an increasingly worrying problem. We know that the mafia has made investments in Romania and was also present in Spain, where they have also made investments.
La presenza in Inghilterra è abbastanza anche comprovata da vari
Several episodes have proven their presence in Britain as well, so I think we cannot establish borders. The mafia does not recognize them. They will go where investment opportunities are better and where the authorities are less able to deal with them.
Is the European coordination being effective?
Dobbiamo ancora crescere in questo campo della cooperazione.
There's so much to do in the field of European cooperation, as very often it still has to go through international requests, which is a slow process.
Che è un meccanismo necessariamente lento. La cooperazione è buona
at a police level, where there is direct contact between the police and the judiciary of each country, cooperation works well. But when it comes to international requests, especially with certain states, there are often serious delays.
Rileviamo dei ritardi anche gravi.
I'm joined on the front line to debate these issues and much more, of course, by Carlo van Hoyklum. He's certainly got his finger on the pulse as head of the Financial Crime Unit at Europol. And Ernesto Savona, Professor Ernesto Savona, who's the Director of Trans Crime and a leading expert on issues of organised crime and confiscation of assets. I'd like to begin with you, Mr. Van Hoyklum, and concentrate on this question of confiscation of assets. Assets which are, of course, derived from the murky worlds of the drugs trade, the arms trade, prostitution rackets. Now, we've just heard from Palermo's chief prosecutor that one of the major sticking points is international cooperation. What's going wrong?
Well, there are two main important issues. In the first place, we need convergence of national legislation, because it's extremely hard to execute a confiscation order across border when the legislation is completely different. Second topic of major importance is the mutual recognition. So member states should recognize the outcome of a conviction and of a confiscation order and execute it in a timely manner.
Professor Savona, what's going wrong?
Well, It's going wrong that countries don't have the same cultural approach. Before, Italians had more because they experimented a lot of problems and they've been developing a lot of instruments. Step by step, other countries are joining to this kind of big challenge, which is take the money out from the pocket of criminal instead of putting only in jail. The old approach is put in jail. Today, countries are understanding that it's not enough, and taking the money will be much more effective. And for doing that, you don't need only laws. You need a cultural, innovative thinking first, instruments for doing investigation.
But we know that approximately just 1% of money laundered is ever recovered. There's a new EU directive on the table that should harmonise the international cooperation in retrieving those stolen assets. Cecilia Malmström, EU Commissioner, is pushing hard for that. Let's hear what she has to say.
I think this will give a good tool for police and authorities all over Europe to really get more of these assets and to show the criminals that crime doesn't pay, and that we also can use this money, especially important in economic crisis, back in the legal sector for welfare projects, schools, health, etc. And this is something that has been lacking in Europe, and I think this is an important tool.
Professor Savona, what kind of impact could this directive, if it's made into legislation, what kind of impact could it have?
The directive is really a big challenge, putting the countries on the same road and going to the same objective, cooperation for being much more effective. The impact will be strong upon criminals, but it will take a lot of time, because countries should have the same instruments, the same capabilities, and there are countries which are moving ahead and countries which stay on the back.
I guess some people would argue that Europol is the wrong organisation for this, that you lack the operational clout. Do you think that a federal police force is needed?
Well, I think this is future wishful thinking. We have to remain realistic. We are not living in a federal state structure yet within the European Union. And there are a lot of practical problems. For instance, the language issue. If we look at the United States of America, they have one single common language. In the European Union, we have 23 official languages. So that creates a tremendous difficulty in having one single police force which operates all over the European Union.
So I'd like to come back to the initial figure that we were looking at the programme, the 1.6 trillion euros. Now, a good part of that money needs to be laundered. Now, you chaps are obviously well aware of the laundering process, but for our viewers, I'd just like to quickly go through it. The first stage is placement, probably the most tricky. The dirty money is placed back into the financial system. The second stage, camouflage, the stash changes hands enough times to become untraceable. For example, deposited in offshore tax havens or filtered through fake companies online. Integration, the money is integrated into the financial system, the legitimate financial system, and this cleaned money now looks legally earned. I'll put this to you, Professor Savona. I can't get my head round how such enormous sums of money can disappear.
The integration is the most dangerous step. And this is really the urgency of solving the problem today, because this money is going to pollute the legitimate economy, which means if I am opening a restaurant and I'm a criminal, I will have, on the end of the story, my food will be cheaper than the food of the competitive restaurants who is taking the money on the bank. That means that the risk modern society are running because of this criminal comes with integration. And this is the most obscure action, because once the money goes in the legitimate economy, there is no way to trace it.
OK, let's just move this forward a little bit and look at the trends that are taking place in terms of investment of these criminal assets. And I'd like you to listen to Rick MacDonald, who's the director, the head of the Financial Action Task Force.
Well, we are concentrating heavily on three aspects in the FATF in terms of policies that countries need to carry out. money that's being laundered, how to identify it and stop it or prosecute it, the movement of terrorist financing money, and more recently, the possible movement of funds to finance the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. In my opinion, we are getting more evidence of that.
So more evidence of financing terrorist activities. Is this what you're seeing? I'll begin with you, Mr. Van Hoykelem.
Well, definitely we see that funds are derived from criminal activity and are going in the direction to fund terrorist activities. But I do not think that we should over-exaggerate that. The paradigm on organized crime is shifting. Currently, organized crime networks are run in a very business-like manner. They strive to maximize the profits, to cut the costs, and some of them have even their own social security system put into place. So we, as law enforcement and judiciary, we need to get the same means to keep the pace.
Professor Svona.
Yeah, you need to take into account that criminals are changing their mind also because of this powerful legislation. So they are modernizing, challenging, and using new instruments, consultants, accountants, lawyers. This is the new thing which is going on. And the government should take into account that we are not dealing with very old, rude criminals. We are dealing with sophisticated criminals that want to avoid that their assets are going to be confiscated.
So always follow the money. Easier said than done. I'd like to thank you both for joining us on the front line. And I'd like to end with this figure, again from UN, that of all the money laundered in the financial system, only an estimated 0.2% is ever retrieved. Organised crime and terrorism, topics in the spotlight in our next issues of On the Front Line.